So somebody messaged me on Threads today, and I thought it would be fun to bring this to the table. Aussie Empath messaged me publicly, and she said, "Is Derek Craven Day still a thing? Because dang, I need a day in solidarity with others to think about his greatness." And I replied, February 4th.
February 4th.
Because Derek Craven Day is indeed
A
February
thing.
4th. And that is our day.
Yes.
Our day of celebration and solidarity. This came because Sanj asked about.
We're still doing collections, and if you are interested, what new one went up this week that Sanj did? We had her on a Derek Craven Day, right, to talk about the Kleypas hero continuum,
the pantheon of Kleypas heroes,
and it was all about like characters who wear glasses. And the thing that was really funny is she was doing some, and this is like, I do like seeing this, like it was originally a thread where she was kind of like, hey, when you think of glasses in romance or whatever. And so it was really funny to see like what people, kind of like wrote about or mentioned or books.
Would you believe by the time I got in there, like 14 hours later, there were 60 people in that thread, not one mention.
The outrage
of Mr. Craven.
I mean, he did it first, he did it best.
Know your betters, everyone.
You guys don't know this, but Derek Craven invented the idea of grinding lenses. I mean,
actually, it was sad. There were just another situation where I was a little bummed because there were no references to historicals in there. And there are a number of historicals where someone wears spectacles.
I gave my favorite answer, which then, I'm sure she was already thinking about it, also made it into the thing, which is in Lead, where it's near the end and Lena's gonna give Jimmy a blowjob and it's like, do you want me to have my glasses on or off? And he's like, on. And she's like, which is like really cute, right? And then she's like, okay, but don't come on the lenses. Which is just, what a practical girl.
Welcome everyone to Fated Mates. I'm Sarah McLean. I read romance novels and I write them.
And I'm Jennifer Prokop, a romance reader and editor.
And June is marching, and that means we are just barely 3 weeks maybe from Fated Mates Live,
yes,
which is very exciting. There are still tickets available. Novel Neighbor is hosting us, and the perfect princess, Kate Claiborne, at Fated Mates Live in St. Louis. You can find information and tickets at fatedmates.net/live. Eric did notice this week that while we have talked about Fated Mates Live on every episode, if you go to the Fated Mates website, there is no place to click on and find Fated Mates Live. So we have rectified that.
That is simply our business.
So there it is. But you can head to fatedmates.net/live. Live are very, very fun. We will be there with hundreds of other Fated Mates listeners. They're always goofy and full of laughs. If you have not been to one and you are in the Midwest and you can make it to join us, we would love to have you. Again, that's fatedmates.net/live. And we are having it on July 8th, which is my release day for my new book, These Summer Storms, which is a contemporary novel with a big, fat romance running right through it. I think you'll be pretty happy with the way things turn out with that romance. It's about a dysfunctional family on a private island. A billionaire dies. The dream.
In the lead up to Storms, we have a couple of episodes, including today's, that are going to kind of tee up some of the themes and ideas in Storms. So today we are going to be talking about dysfunctional families and romance. Next week's episode will actually be the summer preview, right? So romances that are coming out in July, August, and September. And that's always a really fun episode for our discoverability Accountability Buddies. Sorry, I can't say that.
Mm-hmm.
And then July, I guess 1st or 2nd, whatever, the week before Storms comes out, we have a special guest. And then we'll have like the week that Storms comes out, sort of an episode about Storms that will be, I promise everyone, spoiler free. Just like where I kind of interview Sarah about like the book, the process, a lot. And that's always really fun, I think, for us to just like, well, it's fun for me. Sarah, as always, doesn't like to talk about her books. I don't know, weird behavior. But if I wrote a book, everybody,
I barely like to write my books, so I don't want to talk about them.
So that'll be really fun. And then, you know, we will continue on with like episodes through July. And then, you know, kind of as always, we'll take a break, like a 2-week break around Labor Day.
No.
So
yeah, early September. We usually take 2 weeks to just sort of, Jen goes back to school. I like just read a bunch of books for fun.
All the good stuff. Exactly.
It's like a whole thing. Wait, tell everybody what you're doing.
I don't know what I'm doing. What am I doing?
What you're reading for fun.
Oh my God, Sarah. All right. So listen, everyone, it is we are recording this in like my first week of like summer vacation. And so for an episode, I guess it was the Normie plus Celebrity episode, I went back and read a Susan Elizabeth Phillips that sometimes it's funny. Like I'm like, I've never read this before. And then as I'm reading, they come back to me. But this one, maybe I did not. It's What I Did for Love. And it's the one about Georgie, who is a like star. She was like a kind of a star on a sitcom in her teens. And Bram, I think, was the hero. And they were like together, like sort of the stars of the show. And then they end up like sort of getting drunk in Vegas and married now that they're like 30. And they essentially are going to like kind of stay fake married so that people don't, you know, so it doesn't ruin their careers. And I was like, well, this was a nice time. And then the other day, I noticed that most of Susan Elizabeth Phillips' backlist is on sale in ebook for like $2 a book.
There you go.
And I was like, let me just go ahead and download.
I'm going to download every one of them.
Every single one of them. And
is it all with the same narrator?
I'm the ebooks. I don't know if the audiobooks are on sale.
Audio.
So I do feel like when the ebooks are on sale, sometimes the audiobooks are on sale. So this is, if it's, you know, worth checking out if you're listening. But I've heard that the audio is really good, but I basically am like, okay, you know how if you were a Chicago Star, which is the football team in her series, you might have to do like 2-a-days. I am doing 1-a-days, but that 1-a-day is one Susan Elizabeth Phillips a day.
It's a sport of its own.
It is. It's a sport of its own. And so I have read, like, I read Natural Born Charmer. I finished today. I read Dream a Little Dream.
My favorite, Natural Born Charmer.
I can't remember the other one I read.
Did you read Match Me If You Can?
No, it was the one, Molly and Kevin. I read Molly and Kevin, everybody.
Who can remember character names, titles? You know what? And it doesn't matter because Susan Elizabeth Phillips hits it every time. So just whatever you want.
Pretty terrific. So yeah, I'm just kind of like, and you know what else? Some of these books I have definitely never read. And these are books that maybe we've talked about on the podcast, but like I've never read, for example, Ain't She Sweet?
Have you done it yet?
No, but I bought it. $2.
I can't wait.
$2.
I can't wait.
So it was great. I've had a nice time. It's been wonderful.
Because it's fun.
Yeah, God.
Listen, if you haven't gone back to your favorite romance novelist and just like flat out reread
the canon,
every one of them in a while, I highly recommend it as a summer project.
Yeah.
Like, because there's a reason they're your favorite.
Yes.
And you're going to have a great time.
Yeah, it's been really, really wonderful.
Have you bumped up against a dysfunctional family?
Yes, I have.
Would you like to discuss it? And then we'll get into talking about them.
Well, I actually do want to talk about dysfunctional families, like as a thought first, because one of the things that I was really interested in is like thinking about is like, okay, believe it or not, everyone, romance is not real life. I mean, it's my life, but it's not real life. And so I was really curious, like, if you looked up, like, what is a dysfunctional family, like what a therapist would say versus what, like, happens in romance, like, is there a sort of overlap? So I was, like, really sort of curious to kind of think about that. And so I ended up finding this article. I think it was in, like, Psychology Today. Take that for what it's worth, everybody. The 5 major types of dysfunctional families.
Oh, how fun. Let's play that game. Which one is mine?
So then I found myself thinking, like, would this be useful to think about, like, kind of how to sort or like, talk about the books or whatever?
This is great. This will be like rapid fire for me.
Yes, right.
I'm going to put my list away and let's see if I can do it. One of each.
That was the other thing. I was like, I am not going to do a whole lot of prep. This is going to be one of those episodes where we're like, let's see what my brain.
Everybody's like, yeah, it's the beginning of summer, you guys. Yeah. We know you don't do a lot of prep.
Okay, so one of them is the it's not us, it's them family, meaning the family itself has no problems because it projects any and all issues outside of the family unit. Outsiders are the one that are wrong or the ones with the problems. We have it all together, no problems.
Oh, sure. I have one.
Okay,
wait,
tell me.
So now we really are. This is rapid fire, you guys.
Yes.
I had no intention of talking about this book.
See?
But how about Nikki Sloan's The Initiation Through the Redemption?
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Where, like, the father, McAllister, who is the hero of the redemption. Listen, these books.
Mm-hmm.
God, they're so hot. Redemption is so fucking hot. I'm gonna have to go read it again.
Sure. See, this is what's gonna happen.
Anyway, so here's how this. So this is a very often these families. It's not us, and it's not us. It's them. Families are very wealthy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And here we have an extraordinarily wealthy family. The mother is dead. The father is married to a stepmother. There is a son who is in college?
Sure, whatever.
No, I think he's like right out of college. I don't know. Honestly, you guys, I wasn't planning on talking about this, so I can't, whatever. It's whatever it is. But he's going to inherit the like billions of this family and the company. And there's like a kind of skull and bonesy group of very wealthy men in Boston and who like have homes on the Cape. And they all are millionaires and they're all like men in their 40s, 50s, 60s.
They're like
70s.
Like the literal patriarchy.
Yeah. And so the son but they like sit at a big table. They have like these glorious parties and like the men have these like meetings at the parties. They all come wearing tuxedos and their wives come and like it's all money sort of dripping all over. And the hero of the first book, who is the son, he is like his girlfriend, the heroine, has to go to this party for the first time. Like they're getting married. And when they get to this party, he's like, okay, now you come into this meeting with me. And she goes into the meeting only to discover that this meeting is like eyes wide shut shit.
Yeah.
And like basically they want to strip her naked, lay her down on the conference table, and everybody gets to go at her. And his dad is the chairman of the board. And so he gets to go last and like be the one who they all get to like fuck her, but they can't come in her. Because rules.
Sure.
And then the dad is like, but I'm the chairman of the board. And it's so wrong and so fun to read. And like the son hates the dad, but like they have to put on this like very good face. And then this goes on for like 2 books where the father is like obsessed with the son's girlfriend / fiance / about to be wife. And then the 3rd book is called The Redemption, and the hero is the dad. And he has like obviously left his like terrible. Listen, Nikki, this is just all crazy. The stepmother is wacky and like tries to kill someone. And so now the father has been to prison, I think, and now is back. And like he's ready to redeem himself, and he redeems himself by like, I don't know, like just fucking this heroin like all over the place, including on his boat. I'm like learning to love again. It's all crazy, but very fun. So enjoy yourselves. What about you, Jen? Do you have one? Headphones in, everyone.
Too late, Sarah. This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Amy James, author of Crash Test.
Formula One driver Travis Keeping is halfway through the best racing season of his career. The championship is within his sights, and everything is going perfectly until there is a massive crash in Formula 2. And that crash leaves driver Jacob Nichols in critical condition and flips Travis's world upside down because nobody knows that he and Jacob have been dating for almost a year. So now Jacob, the only man Travis has ever loved, is clinging to life. His Formula One team cannot understand why his performance is faltering because Jacob is in, chaos. And Travis is locked in a cold war with Jacob's parents, who want him as far away from their son as possible. Travis is sure everything will get better if Jacob wakes up and just like gets out from under his parents' influence and they can move on. But the F1 season barrels on. Travis and Jacob are stuck alone and miserable on opposite ends of the globe. And though they find new friends, these drivers are going to be pushed outside of their comfort zones and have to figure out their journey of self-discovery and how it brings them back to each other.
Yeah, listen, F1 is so hot right now, and this might be the book for you, especially all this angsty, delicious drama. So if you would like to check out Crash Test, it is available in audio, paper, and ebook. And if your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Amy James for sponsoring this week's episode. I was thinking that maybe the Green sisters from Joanna Shoup's Uptown Girls series
that's a good one.
might qualify there, right? Because it's like one of the things that's like really persistent for each of the sisters as they like kind of have their own story is that like the parents are literally like, why are you acting like this? Like, we're perfect and awesome and right. So I was kind of thinking that like that whole vibe, and then of course, like that's the very thing that they are rebelling against as well. Right. That if they would, and I think if the girls would only sort of like be good and do the right thing and marry who their parents want them to marry. I mean, this is especially, I would say, like in Mimi's story, right? Like they have someone picked out for her, and it turns out that he's terrible. And so I guess I would say I was sort of thinking like, but like you, I was sort of like these like kind of wealthy, moneyed society families, right? Like we can't ever admit that anything is wrong. I was also
reputation.
Yeah,
is king.
Right. Anytime somebody's like, but I'm a duke, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even like the Louisa Darling series, I thought, right? Like he essentially throws them out. Like what his in book one, the stepmother essentially the father dies, right? And so the new duke, and it turns out that the old duke had married like his first wife had died. He had a young son, and he married the nanny, the governess. And so once that guy dies, right, the son who's now, in his 20s or whatever, kicks them all out. He's basically like, I have to rebuild our reputation. Okay. Number 2. Okay, ready? Is the What Will the Neighbors Think family. These are families who are so worried about what others think that it completely consumes how they act and present themselves. Even in times of stress or grief, makeup is applied perfectly, closed press, giving the impression that we have it together.
So the storms. But we won't talk about storms, but that feels like maybe not.
There's a next one too that I think
there's another one.
Yeah, but for sure, I think this is part of it. Yeah.
Okay, I've got one. This is my favorite kind of episode.
Yeah.
Y'all, if you like this kind, like if you have something that like you
would
want
lend
to
us
throw at
to
us
doing
and
us.
we, like if you have a list like this
Yeah.
and you just want us to name romance novels that are relevant to it, this is my favorite.
Yeah.
Okay, how about Tracy Livesey's American Royalty for this?
Yeah. This was literally on my list too for this one.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's perfect, right?
It's perfect. So Duchess, who is an American rapper, is hired to go and do like a Jubilee concert in England for the Queen of England. And it's like an anniversary of her being, I don't know, it's either her birthday. It doesn't matter. It's Jubilee, maybe, I think. Anyway, so Duchess gets hired. She goes there to do it, only to discover that like the royals' like favorite, sort of most practical royal like prince, who is also an academic and like doesn't like the limelight and prefers to stay out of everything. He has been given the responsibility of throwing this like big event, and he has to work with Duchess, this American rapper, who has like decided to do this because she's trying to launch a business. Like she has like plans for her life that are beyond performance. And these two just like instantly are so hot for each other. Like she's, for romance reasons, she's living in his house with perfect, no notes. Anyway, so, but of course the royal family is like falling apart. There's like a drunken uncle and everybody hates each other. It's like a real royals situation, but you would never know it from like the outside. It's all happening on the inside. Propriety is everything. And the idea that their like favored son would end up with an American rapper is,
I mean,
just
the horror.
Unconscionable.
Well,
right?
and a black woman, not just, right?
Gosh.
Like,
yeah, and a black woman. So terrific. Exactly that.
Yeah. Now, it was funny because what was interesting as I was looking at these five, and I don't think I think these are like I said, there's like real life problems. This is one where I was like, a lot of women in particular in romance, I think get sort of kind of, right? Like you're a rule breaker, you're the black sheep, you're the whatever, and therefore, right, it's a problem. But the one I also thought of here was, and I also think it's worth saying, like, I feel like recency bias comes into this a lot, right? Because this kind of plot, I think you can kind of name a lot of things. You're like, what did I just read? And you know what I was thinking of?
This is also any book that pays off somebody to leave the family.
Oh, absolutely. Right. Like, exactly. Like you can think of like specific ones and then you're like, oh, that's the blueprint. So for me, I was thinking about the newest Alexis Daria, right? It's Along Came Amor. And in this one, Ava has recently been divorced. And it's really interesting because we see the divorce actually happened, I think, in the previous book, and she's hiding it because and it takes kind of a while in this book for you to figure out like what exactly is going on. And so one of the things that happens is like she can't admit that she like really can't pay the rent on their 2-bedroom apartment without her ex-husband's like money, right? And so the primas have to like come and help her and like, you know, find a new apartment that she can afford on her own. And the inciting kind of incident of this book, the way it starts is essentially that like the divorce is finalized, right? Like, so she signed the paperwork and it's finalized. And when she starts dating Roman, who is like a very, not only like this beautiful man, he is a man who is a millionaire. He owns this hotel chain. Anyone would be happy, like any parent, right, would be happy to have this man walk in the door with your daughter.
Yeah.
But because she is so gun shy from how they treated her after the divorce, she's basically like, I am never going to let them know who I'm dating again. Like, I'm not going to do that to myself again, because what if it doesn't work out and the story and the narrative is then just amplified that like she's no good. You know what I mean? She's no good. She's a troublemaker, like whatever. And so, and of course, Roman is like, wait, I'm the secret, right? And it's terrific. But I really did find, I think it could be very difficult to let. There's I really admired Alexis's work with Ava in this book, because I think it can be very hard to let a woman be really vulnerable about a failed relationship, even in romance.
Yep.
And I think her struggle with this and you know, then at the end of the day, at the end of the book, she has to be able to tell her family members, like, knock it off. Right? Knock that shit, knock it off. And anyway, so I thought that would be like a really good example, because it's what she feels, or has been made to feel, is that somehow she's like brought shame on the family. And there's a lot of ways that like this plays into kind of her own, like the way she was raised, and you know what, there's a bunch going on, but I thought it was really good for that. So that's what will the neighbors think? Okay, this is the one that I thought would be like Alice, which is the identified patient family. These families owe all of their struggles and problems to one member of the family.
Oh, that's Alice.
There's always one who is to blame.
Right? Never mind. Right? I mean, it's possible the Storms are all of these in some way. I mean, it's funny because today I was talking to Louisa about this episode, and I was like, oh, I'm recording with Jen tonight. Like, we're doing dysfunctional families. And she said, in romance? And I said, yeah. And she said, aren't they all? And a lot of them are. Yeah. And maybe we can like do this one and then like talk a little bit about this and then go through the next two. But I'm going to talk about a book that I think does this incredibly well. It's One and Only by Jenny Holiday. And what it is Cameron is the hero, and it's his older brother's wedding, and Jane is the heroine, and she's like essentially like the maid of honor or whatever. And she essentially is tasked by the bride with like Cameron's gonna fuck everything up. So you have to go and like take care of it so that he doesn't fuck everything up. Like, it's your job to essentially like babysit him. And she is like, what are you talking about? This guy is great. Right. And so I think one of the things that's like, I really liked about this, talk about this one here, is I feel like part of it is like the distance, right? Like he, I think, went away to the army or something. And so he hasn't lived at home for a long time. The older brother is just like super successful. It has a lot to do with like how they were raised and their mom and all this stuff and kind of their hometown. And, you know, he was just like this kind of wild child. And now he's never been able to like let go of that reputation. And it's very poignant. It's a very deeply emotional. And I think part of it is Jane sort of seeing Jane be like, okay, it's my job to like task this wild one, and then being like, wait, what is going on? And then kind of trying to figure out like, am I going to like go toe to toe with the bride and groom over how shitty they are to his, like, to like this guy I just met? It's great. It was really great. So it's One and Only by Jenny Holiday. All right. For this one, I feel like The Billionaire's Bargain by Naima Simone is a good pick, because the problem person is their daughter-in-law, who is okay. The premise here, we did a deep dive of these, but in like season 2 or 3. And this is like, there's a blackout and there's a fancy party, and like Naima has all these couples like basically like fucking during the blackout. It's great.
Well, I mean, it's a blackout, Sarah. What else?
They're all billionaires. It's fine. So this guy, the blackout hits, and then like he, you know, there's like a kiss with like, you know, some secret, a sort of like, you know, a woman who is a caterer. She's like dressed in a catering outfit. And so they like, well, no, she's not dressed in a catering outfit. She's actually catering this party. But he like makes out with her. The lights come on and oh my God, it's the widow of his best friend. I love romance so much. Okay, but like the perception is that this woman has like squandered his best friend's money. Like they have a son and she's like moved out of his best friend's like family home and like she's raising her son like in a like an apartment in a not great area of Chicago. And like seems to like not be willing to spend any money on his best friend's son and like what's wrong with this, like what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so he decides that he is going to like protect his best friend's like legacy while like and marry. And he basically like offers her marriage, a marriage of convenience. Of course, what it turns out is that like the best friend's parents have like treated her terribly. They are like trying to get custody of her son. They have like essentially blamed her for everything that's ever gone wrong in their life. And now, you know, he has always, the hero of this book has always believed them because he had a relationship with these parents and like they all came from this rarefied air community. And so, while he doesn't believe that they should take the child away from her, he does believe that like she obviously needs him to take care of her. And she's like, fuck you. Like, I'm doing fine. And I don't want anything to do with you people.
Yeah, this is a great one. I mentioned Lead at the beginning of the episode about glasses, but like this classic Jimmy Ferris, right? Like and it turns out like one of the things that I thought was really great about Lead is it's the third book of the Stage Dive series, and Jimmy's brother David is the hero of the first book, right? And so what happens is in Lead, you kind of find out like why Jimmy was using drugs. Like his mom was an addict. And so he kind of is like a fuck you. He was like, the first pills I ever took, I stole from her. And so the thing though that's like really interesting is she's constantly going after Jimmy and it's really painful for him. And it's Lena who at some point says to David, like, you need to be on your brother's side. Like, why would you, right? Like, and it's because Jimmy sort of hid the ways that he was like kind of taking the hits, right? Like he was kind of like, if I am the one who stands up in front of my mother and, you know, takes these hits and becomes like the whipping boy of the family, then David will be protected, right? In some kind of way. And so I think that there's a way in which when it's well done, it becomes like a heroic part of their journey as well, right? That they have to sort of like stop believing that about themselves.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't want to, the sort of first book that immediately came to mind, and I was like, I cannot talk about that book again, but I will just name it, is Angelina M. Lopez's After Hours on Milagro Street, right? Where like she is the problem child so much that like she went away and now she's back in disgrace. And like her arc is to realize like, in fact, like your family does care about, like, does care about you, is you are, like, did they make you the problem child or have you made yourself the problem child?
Yes.
Right?
Right.
And that's a really interesting arc, but I didn't want to talk too much about it because I've talked about that book a lot. This week's episode of Fate of Mates is sponsored by Underlined, a YA community for book lovers where young people can find their next book obsession with quizzes, reading lists, book trailers, and more.
So we have talked at length about how hard discoverability is for anybody right now. And that can be especially true if you are a YA reader or have a YA reader in your life, right? So trying to find stuff that is designed for like a young adult who is looking for books can be a really tough thing. And Gut Underlined is one of the best. Listen, I'm a middle school teacher, so you can take this to the bank. One of the best well-designed sites I've seen. I've shown this site to kids once I found out about it, because what they have is when you go to getunderlined.com is they have information about all of the books that are part of Random House Children's Books YA imprints. There is a real focus on thriller, fantasy, and then there's even a specific love underlined section that covers all of YA romance. When you go to the main page, there's like lots of different ways to dive into it, which I think is really important, right? It's not just like one pathway. So you can just start browsing, but then they have sections that are like new releases or reading lists. And then if you keep scrolling, there's really cool like articles or quizzes. For example, which YA romance should you read for Pride Month? You can do giveaways. So there are forms that they might have for books that they're highlighting and giving away. There is a promo trailer for We Were Liars, which is a really terrific YA book by E. Lockhart that is being made into a TV show on Prime Video. And so this just has kind of everything in one place, so they can learn about authors, learn about books, learn about genres, learn about events, merch, newsletters, you name it. So if you're kind of like, how do I keep my kid reading this summer? Or how do I find books for the readers in my life? Then getunderlined.com is the place for you.
If you have a young reader in your life and you want to check out Get Underlined with them, you can go to getunderlined.com/podcast and learn more. That's where you'll find all of the lists Jen talked about, the quizzes, etc. Again, it's getunderlined.com/podcast. If your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to Get Underlined. Thanks to Underlined for sponsoring this week's episode.
I feel like this comes up a lot in historicals, especially if you're not the heir, right? For like men.
Sure.
Right? Like you're just...
It's time for you to get it together.
Yeah, like you're some sort of wastrel or whatever, and then you're going to have to figure it out. So yeah, I have a lot of... This is like a character I often really like in a romance.
The Roth brothers.
I was totally, when you were like, let me think, I wanted to be
Conrad.
like Conrad Roth.
Conrad Roth. Oh, Conrad, my sweet baby boy.
You know what else?
Oh my God, what a
I know.
Everybody just... I'm going to leave right now and read Dark Desires After Dusk. No, Dark Needs at Night's Edge. See, I don't even know what the titles are.
Doesn't matter.
It's Dark Needs at Night's Edge. That's that book. And oh, my sweet baby Conrad.
I know.
The greatest book about addiction, the greatest book about having to get clean and like also clean up your act and to be worthy of love emotionally and physically and stop killing people for it.
You know what else I thought? And maybe this isn't the right place for this one. Maybe it's like one of the other ones is the Heather Guare book,
Preferential Treatment,
where she like leaves her younger sister in the like abusive household.
Yeah.
And then like, because she left, her mom was constantly like, you know, your sister was the bad one, right? Like the narrative of their kind of adulthood. And then when she doesn't like pitch in with her sister's kids or doesn't fix things, it just sort of like it's a little different because it's just, I think it has like a different profile. But that to me, when a character leaves home, right? Because it's so abusive and so terrible. And then the other siblings at some point are like, how do you leave me? I feel like that's like a really...
Like, Day of the Duchess.
Yeah, right? Like, just, what about us? Like, you left us here the mess was still here, you just weren't, right? And I feel like that is always a really difficult, even though it's not exactly what was described here, like, you've isolated yourself from the family unit in some kind of way, and then that's... You
become the outcast. You outcast yourself, yeah.
Okay, do you want to talk? There's two more, or do you want to?
Yeah, let's keep doing it,
okay.
And then we'll talk about it at the end. We're going to reverse
We're reversing whole order.
Structure.
Okay. All right, the Ferris wheel family. This family is unreliable and inconsistent because it's all ups and downs and unpredictability.
I feel like this is a lot of like chaos historicals. Like this is very common in historicals. But you know what's interesting about it is I say that, and as the words were coming out of my mouth, I was like, I don't know if this is a rare one. This particular function is rare in romance because if the family is ever really around, they often do sort of come back together.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about historicals. I need to think. You have one?
You know, I was thinking about is I found myself then thinking not about like dysfunctional family, like your actual family, but like the Mafia family. Right?
Oh,
because I was sort of like, what would it look like if...
What did you say? You can't rely on your family? Is that what it is? The language that they used?
It's this family is unreliable and inconsistent. There's lots of trauma resulting in ups and downs and unpredictability. So the two books there's this interesting pair of books in this Perfectly Imperfect series by Neva Altej, and the two that it's the last.
You really like that series.
I do like that series, and in this particular one,
I haven't read it, so I don't know.
It's book number 9 is called Darkest Sins, and book number 10 is called Sweet Prison, and it's two sisters, right? So Nira is the heroine of number 9, and her sister Zahara is the one in 10. And the reason, and like a lot of their story, like kind of plays out over books, but basically their stepbrother, when they're little, kills somebody like at a family party and ends up in jail. And then their father is sort of the head of the Boston Mafia or whatever. And he is like kind of trying to, tell Nira she's going to have to marry somebody terrible. And she essentially agrees to it. But in the course of reading the two books, you understand that the brother who's been put in prison is actually the one calling all the shots, but nobody knows it. And so he is sort of like forces Nira. He kind of makes this deal with her. Like, if you agree to marry this guy, when I get out, like, don't worry, I'll take care of it. But I need you to kind of hold the family together because the father is killed. And so and then like she has like this man in her life and she gives birth to a baby and no one knows who the father is. I mean, like, it's just like lots and lots and lots of like Mafia family drama. And I feel like one of the things I liked about it was, if you don't read 9, a lot of the events of 10 don't make sense. Like, it's like really layered where you think you know what's going on in 9 and then you get a whole different look in 10. And I did feel like that was sort of, I don't know, like I kind of was thinking about like, okay, this is a family that really has had some ups and downs. And then, of course, in 10, Massimo, whose brother, gets out, and it turns out he's in love with Sahara, like kind of through these letters they've been writing back and forth to each other. It's super over the top, but I was like, maybe it's like Mafia family drama. But yeah, I think it's hard. Ups and downs.
I could see that. There's that series that launched Take the Finger, Annika Martin's.
Oh, yeah.
Dark Mafia. Is it Dark Mafia Prince? Is that right?
Yes, something like that, yeah.
Okay, we'll get it right. We'll put it in the show notes, everybody. But that series, so if we're going to stick with these kind of like, that series works because there's the brother who almost takes the finger in the first book. So, this is it's a revenge plot. Like, they want to take revenge on their parents were killed by her father, and therefore now that they're all grown up, the boys were separated and like sent to the Four Winds, and now 2 of them are together and they're searching for the third, who, by the way, everybody, has been raised feral in the wilderness by wolves.
I'm not even
Romance
mad about
is
it.
perfect. Don't even come for me. Anyway, but in the first one, so like they've just like found each other. The 2 brothers are like they're sort of recently reconciled, and it's like a real tenuous truce between them. And then they kidnap this girl, like basically intending to like sacrifice her, or at least like use her to get her dad to like come and let them kill him, essentially. And when the dad doesn't immediately turn, they're like, but the girl and the hero, the heroine and the hero, the daughter and the hero have like when they were children, they knew each other, and they very quickly, like,
Yeah.
he softens to her. And the brother is like, hey, fuckwit, like, we have a plan. I don't care about you feeling soft. And then he goes to Staples and gets a paper cutter and comes back and, like, he's going to paper cut her finger off. And the hero doesn't allow it. But like, it's that kind of thing, that sort of like, we have a plan, you're not sticking to it. And you're ruining everything because of it. And I don't give a shit about your feelings.
So a Susan Elizabeth Phillips that I think works here is Natural Born Charmer, which is about Dean Robillard. And part of the reason it works is that the Ferris wheel part of it was during his childhood. So his mom was a groupie, and his father is essentially like, his name's Jack Patriot. He's like this, like, Susan, I love you. So April is his mom's name, and he basically is like, he remembers she was an addict through a lot of his childhood, but because his father was a rich, essentially rock star, he was able to have like money and like at some point got sent to boarding school, and you know what I mean? Like, but like his entire childhood was his absentee father. He didn't even, it's really great. For most of his childhood, he thought Bruce Springsteen was his father, but it turns out it was Jack Patriot.
This is the crazy thing. Like, I'm sorry, but no one in contemporary right now is writing like this. Like, you would never be like, I thought Hosier was my father.
But it turned
you
out.
Get sued. Like, it's amazing.
No, it is amazing.
I hope Bruce Springsteen has that on the wall next to his platinum record. Like,
Sure.
just also.
I was almost right. So Dean is the quarterback of the Chicago Stars, and he has he's picked up Blue Bailey, and she has her own problems, which are her mother is essentially like a Mother Teresa like figure who is out like saving people around the world, right? Like and has essentially emptied all of Blue's bank accounts to give to like sort of free these girls from like a jail somewhere or whatever. And it's what happens is like Dean's just like, I need to be entertained. And Blue, I swear to God, is walking down the road in a beaver costume. And he's like, this seems entertaining. I'm going to pick up this woman. Their banter is unparalleled, right? And they drive to Nashville where he has a home. And he's like, the woman who's like kind of running the renovation isn't answering my email, my phone calls, and I need to go see what's going on. And she's like, well, I'll go with you. I'm a fly by night, like, I love to travel. So it turns out that the woman who has been renovating his home is not Susan O'Hara, but his mother. And she's kind of like, she's been clean for 10 years, but she really views this as like her one opportunity to like make a home for her son. Right. So like kind of she found out through the grapevine, the people like that he bought this house, and she's like, I'm going to essentially like take some time off of my job, go to Nashville, like outside of Eastern Tennessee, and I'm going to, get this job. Then it turns out that Dean has like a half sister. Jack has at some point married later and has this 11-year-old daughter, Riley, who her mother has died, and Jack is about to do the same exact thing to her that he did to Dean, which is just like pay a lot of money to not pay attention to her. And she, like in a harrowing chapter, gets herself to Eastern Tennessee with like a teenage driver. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you've got April calls and is like, Jack, you got to send somebody to get her. And Jack himself comes, and now the whole Robillard family is together in a farmhouse without doors, literally with no doors. This is a perfect metaphor for the family itself. And it is, honestly, it's like, what a romance. But the whole family is like, the whole thing is Dean trying to learn to forgive his parents for being young and stupid, and having more money than sense in Jack's case, and this like sort of love for rock and roll, and like kind of how it felt for April. And it is terrific. But I think the reason it works is because this is pain that is in his past, right? Mm-hmm. His mother is not currently battling addiction. She's been clean for 10 years. Right. Yeah. And so I think, but, Riley, this child in the mix, is just heartbreaking, like just a heartbreaking character. And all she wants is for someone to love her. And of course, Dean is like, I wanted the same thing, but I don't know if I'm the person to do that now. It's awesome. So yeah, that's my Ferris wheel family, the Robillards from Natural Born Charmer.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Kristen Jennings, author of Lessons from a Tour Guide.
Hannah Poole has a great idea to start her own travel agency in which she will give, like personal tours in amazing cities like Paris. And one of her first clients is a septuagenarian named Hazel. And what Hazel wants to do is go to Paris and take her friends and have a grand old time. And Hannah is like, this is the perfect setup for me, because if I do a great job on this, the word of mouth and will just mean that it'll get my new business off to a great start. Along comes Noah Eversham. Hazel is his grandmother, and he is pretty concerned that Hannah might actually be trying to take advantage of her, or this could be a situation that would be ripe for her to sort of be a little sneaky and be after grandma's money. And he just is very suspicious, this Noah. And so he decides to force his way onto the trip in order to make sure everything is on the up and up. Well, Hannah is not going to let her let guarded and suspicious Noah and his annoyingly handsome face distract her. She has a job to do, and she is going to do it, and he can scowl at her all he likes. But once grandmother Hazel and all of her friends notice this tension between Hannah and Noah, they get the completely wrong idea that romance might be the case rather than enmity, and they decide to start doing some matchmaking throughout the City of Lights.
Sounds like it's the right idea, if you ask me. If you also think it's the right idea, then you can read Lessons from a Tour Guide right now in print, ebook, or with your monthly subscription to Kindle Unlimited. If your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks so much to Kristen Jennings for sponsoring this week's episode, and congratulations on your debut. I want to come back to this Ferris wheel thing, because maybe we'll come back to it later, because I do think that there is a version of Ferris wheel that exists very much in romance. And so
let's return to it.
Just put a pin in it, and I want to come back to the Ferris wheel.
Well, because I think there are a kind of dysfunctional romance family that is not represented in these 5 things.
Yeah, that's lovable and charming.
Yeah. Okay, so then there's the just trying to survive family, right?
Oh boy.
These are families who are just trying to make it through dealing with impossible situations, violence, poverty, whatever. But just everything.
These are our brothers, the Mackenzies.
Yes.
Jennifer Ashley's the Mackenzies.
Yes.
I mean, I would say you could throw a stone in historical and hit one of these families of brothers. Maybe there's one precious sister.
You know what I was thinking? The Sinsters, right? Dixon, they all have to go to Waterloo, Sarah.
And they all have trauma because they all hate their dad. It's just every romance hero ever who has daddy issues, this is the family they come from.
Yeah. And I think often these families are just they're all their own little silo because they don't know how to help or support or be with each other. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or I was thinking again about Susan Elizabeth Phillips, and another one of the books I read this week was Dream a Little Dream. And this is the one where Gabe's wife and 5-year-old son died in a car accident at some point earlier.
Yeah.
And he's just tortured. He's tortured. And his brothers love him, but they don't know how to help him.
Yeah.
And along comes Rachel with her own 5-year-old, who has been her husband was a preacher who stole money from his congregation and then died in a plane crash or something. And so she's come back because she's sort of convinced that he has hidden something somewhere that she can use to essentially ensure that her son will have a future, money.
Yeah.
And it's terrible. Gabe is just heartbroken, and his brothers are kind of, and he's like opening this like drive-through and he hates it. And the brother's like, it looks so great. And she's like, what's wrong with you? He hates this. Why aren't you telling him to go back and be a veterinarian? This is what he loves, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a good example of a family who the trauma of Gabe losing his wife and this beloved child, just like the family just kind of like doesn't know how to fill that hole in Gabe.
Yeah.
And then it's just like a black hole in the middle of the family. And for Gabe himself. Right? So yeah, that was another one that I thought would maybe be like, just one person has experienced some trauma so massive, right? I think
and
Kennedy
they're all
Ryan
sort of supporting them. Yeah, Kennedy writes that. I mean, Kennedy also, like, this is again where like the like family is a broader definition.
Yeah, because
right?
for Kennedy, a lot of it is like my friends or my support system. And right.
Yeah. Like if you think about like the Black Dagger Brotherhood, right? And how they all like protect Zadist, or like how, or, the Sebastian brothers and their trauma and the way that they protect sweet baby. Vika, do not leave me, punch his window. What's his name? Why did his name just escape me? What the fuck is his name?
I don't know.
It's Alex, Maxim, and
Dimitri,
the third one.
And the third one.
See, that's why he needs to be protected, because no one knows his name.
I mean, I think that sometimes is like that I think is often how that plays out in romance, is like one of us experience something
there's your big Duke at the end, right? Like it's always that one's always the last one to find love. And like we've watched him be tortured for, 5 years, and now finally we get his book and we all love him so much. Man, we're simple people. We're simple people, Jen.
I am simple but awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, here's my question then.
Yeah.
Should
I look at my list now?
Yeah, I think
what I've forgotten.
Well, like you, I sort of, and Louisa was sort of like, all romance families are dysfunctional, but I think they are dysfunctional in a certain way. One of the things I really wanted to like point out, and like we've talked about this before, is often in a book like this with a dysfunctional family, because of the HEA, I think there is a feeling that like you have to redeem or make.
Where'd this come from?
Eric, my address is.
How exciting.
Later he's going to be like,
my family is not dysfunctional today.
They brought her ice cream.
They brought me ice cream.
I think sometimes in a book there is a movement towards like, well, if we want the person to be in a happily ever after, then they have to like sort of fix whatever's wrong in their family too. I think sometimes can be trite or can be like damaging, right? So one of the things that is for queer people, especially, like if your family has cast you out, there is no like
fuck that. Yeah.
Yes,
find
right. Like,
a new family.
Right, exactly. And I think that's why the power of like found family is especially so important to like
especially
realize
in queer romance.
Yes, exactly. And there's
in all romance, right? Like this is okay. This is Kingdom of Dreams, which is not at all queer romance. Everybody.
No. I just want to say that, like, there's a reason we did not mention queer romance today. Like, I specifically was like, I'm not going to come in. Yeah, exactly. Right. And talk about dysfunctional families. Because if they kicked you out, that's not dysfunctional. They are wrong.
Yeah. And that's not, they're shitty. Don't come back to them. Right.
Right.
And so I didn't mean to be glib.
No, I don't think you did.
This is about Kingdom of Dreams. You need to understand, everybody, that every day I think this is about this is like Kingdom of Dreams. It's just like all I want out of my life is for everything to just come back to Judith McNaught novels. Anyway, but in Kingdom of Dreams, if you remember, she has this like terrible family, and what's missing from that dysfunctional family loop is like the dysfunctional family that is so dysfunctional, sort of, and this is uncommon in romance, I think, but like a terrible family. Actually, no, it's not. Let me, now you're all having the thought. You're all in my brain. I'm so sorry for all of you. Okay, this often happens to heroines, and it often it happened a lot to heroines in old school romance, where a heroine would be the one shining beacon of light. It's the reverse of the
Yes.
all the problems are on this person.
Right.
It's none of the problems are on this person, right?
Right.
The heroine would be one shining beacon of light. The rest of the family is fucked beyond measure. And she is either Kingdom of Dreams style, attempting to like win their love, be supported by them, be the favorite, never step out of line. And then they try to murder her love. And then she realizes, okay, this is maybe this is a toxic family. My family might be dysfunctional. Or two is they cast her out. And then she has to like be, ridden through the woods to Scotland and wrapped in a plaid in the cold by some stranger because he's more willing to take care of her and more able to take care of her than her family could. And so he brings her to new family, right? My clan.
I really struggle with sort of the push for like a next generation. Because one of the things you have to believe is that like
Jen, you're gonna get me in trouble.
Oh, sorry, Sarah. Is that like these people are real fucked up from their families, right? Every romance family is dysfunctional in its own way. And therefore, like in finding this person, they're able to like kind of like work through and become better people. Well, these people are going to raise good kids, okay, everybody? Right? And
I mean, that's the deal. Happily ever after means that you don't bring trauma on the next generation.
Right.
It's
so,
part
like,
of the fantasy.
How could you be an interesting character if your parents were, right? And so I think that this is like,
it, not
right?
me.
And that's why I think there has to be like some kind of interesting way to deal with that. So I'm going to go back to, I'm sorry, these Neva Ultra books, which I like. There is like a next generation. And I was kind of like, okay, I guess I'm curious about this enough to be like, what's going on? Well, the first one I read, and I would have to look up the name of this book, sorry, is Beautiful Beast.
You're better at this than I am. I haven't looked any of them up. I'm like, good luck to you all. It's a scavenger hunt.
But in this book, the heroine is the daughter of like the couple in book number 1. And she can't do Mafia because she's a girl. And so part of her like damage is that she is not allowed to like participate in the family business because of her gender. And I was like, okay, that's smart then, right? It's not that she actually loves her family and you know what I mean? But she's just.
And the trauma isn't coming from how the family treats her. The trauma is, how do I find somebody who can love me despite,
don't worry, she's just another mafia guy and it all works out for her. But I was like, okay, that is maybe a way to do it because it's, you know what I mean? And then it actually, I could like sort of enjoy, turns out she gets kidnapped. It's fine. There's scenes where her father is basically like, where are you? And he can't, and she's like, I can't come back home right now. I can't tell you. And then you see like the limits of that. So I thought it was like actually okay, I was like, okay, I can see why then I might be interested because the trauma is not, or whatever is like sort of the wound of this character is not being driven by, my awful parents because my parents were great and loved each other. This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by J.L. Birchwood, author of Power Ballad, a Metal Mayhem Festival romance. I love this.
It's really cute. So Delilah is having a rough time. 2 months ago, her fiance dumped her for another woman, and she has decided that she is going to cure her broken heart with heavy metal music. She is going to go to the Metal Mayhem Festival, which is a 4-day celebration of heavy metal music at a soccer stadium in walking distance from her house. And she and her friend are going to be in the blistering sunshine and eat deep fried festival food and pretend that like hearts are mended. Unfortunately, her best friend can't make it at the last minute. And Delilah is sort of in a place where she's not sure, like, can she really do this alone? Like, that's a long haul for one person. But she decides she's going to go. She's going to try it because, like, the other option is to wallow for the whole weekend, and that's not an option. When she gets there, she meets Bryce, who is at the festival for a friend's 30th birthday and literally would rather be anywhere else. Like, it's hot and the beer is warm and he doesn't know the music. Basically, he's like me at a festival. And so this is definitely not his crowd. But he meets Delilah and the two of them are like instantly attracted to each other. This is a romance that is kind of lower stakes, very insta love, low spice, but I think a lot of heat.
Yeah. And listen, I love a summer concert, and a summer festival sounds like a great setting for a sort of like, the fates have brought us together in a really modern and fun and metal way. That's so metal, Sarah. So if you would like to check out Power Ballad, it is available with your monthly subscription to Kindle Unlimited. And if your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks to J.L. Birchwood for sponsoring this week's episode.
Can we talk about dysfunctional families in romance that are actually like kind of lovable and fun?
Sure.
Because I think Susan does that a lot.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Right? Like, I think the family... Like, she often does that with, like, grandparent. Like, there's always some, like, quirky grandparent, great aunt.
Bobby Thomas telling everyone his mother was a sex worker. Like, and I'm sorry I'm laughing, but she's just, like, so used to it because he can't believe he comes from this, like, totally normal.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or the family in Welcome to Temptation. No, just liars, cheats, thieves.
Yeah, they have like a little and that's it. Like, you have to teach the younger generation how to like con people. They're they're con women, and
that's Vika's whole family in The Player, which we've already talked about. A quirky family is really fun. I mean, I guess you could say like the Soiled S's, like all of the I don't even remember their names. The Talbot sisters in my Scandal and Scoundrels series. Like, if you just have a group of people who are like all chaos, then it makes a better story because like there's always something fun going on. The difference between the like Ferris wheel family that's too chaotic to rely on is that these Ferris wheel families will do anything to take care of you.
Yeah. One of the families I found myself really thinking about was everybody knows I love that Blue Cedar Falls series by Jeannie Chin. Mm-hmm. And in this, it's there's three sisters, the Wu sisters, and they were moved by their parents into a small, like, sort of town in the Smoky Mountains in North Carolina. And in the first book, June is essentially like there's like a bed and breakfast that is their family's that she's managing. And she's like essentially like, I gotta save this town. Like, the town itself is dying out. And so she comes up with the idea for like, kind of a festival. And, she's got like, they've got this real charming cat who's become an internet sensation. And, then Clay is going to come and open up a bar, and he's like a real outsider. She just sees him as being something different. And the thing that I really loved about this series is that like these three sisters are really different. And then in the second book, May essentially was like, this town was really racist and treated me terribly, and I hated it. And even though she had a boyfriend, they were going to like run away together. She leaves and he won't leave. And so she comes back, and it's a second chance romance. And then in the third book, Elizabeth is the sister who is like an artist, and she's kind of like, May comes home and she's like, maybe I want to leave, and then doesn't realize that like her longtime roommate has been in love with her all along. But I think one of the things that is also so I mean, this series is great if you want to read about like a dysfunctional family who loves each other, but they just can't figure out how to support each other. And then like the work, it's so each individual romance is happening, but also like kind of the work of repairing the family itself. It's awesome. It's like, I think really one of the best romance series I've read in the past couple years in terms of how each individual book builds to a cohesive whole for the whole family.
We didn't talk about like evil
Yeah. I was
uncles,
thinking about
etc.,
that.
but they're sort of a dime a dozen. I think there's like the families where there's like, you know, Scar from the Lion King.
Hear me out, Scar. Okay, fine. No. They are like a dime a dozen, but I find those types of characters pretty flat and forgettable.
Yeah.
Right?
Agreed.
Like I'm like, yes, I've read that plot where
because it's not an interesting
it's
family dynamic.
Right. And it's not trying to be. It's really like a plot device. Like, you know, in a historical, it's like I'm a young, like I mentioned that Gabrielle Carr book, right? Like I'm a young woman. My uncle is the titled person. He doesn't want to support me anymore. He's going to force me to get married. Bam.
Right.
Right.
It's more interesting when it's like in the proposition when the uncle is sort of distant and cold and like she loses her whole family.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's just, the family is gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really tricky because the more evidence you put on page that this character has like too much family trauma and they haven't figured out how to deal with it, the harder it is for me to believe the HEA, not just because I'm like, this person needs to do some work on themselves, right? And sometimes what can be really tricky with that is if that is introduced too late, for me, it can be really hard to know if, well, how is this new person in their life helping them figure out kind of like what's next? And so like an example of that is in Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. It's almost like a book that really is like two parts. In Justin and Emma kind of have this meet cute. She's a travel nurse and he has a really hard time like figuring out why she's so like kind of what has made her so mistrustful. And okay, like spoiler alert or whatever, she actually like finds out that and she's like spent some time in foster care. And so she has like kind of a best friend that, you know, was like her foster sister who like, you know, took her in or whatever, and who's like a nurse with her. And it's really clear that she just doesn't really trust anybody, even this family who like took care of her. Well, it turns out like her mother hid her from her parents and her family. Like she finds out in the book, like, I have a brother. Like she had no idea. It's just to really grapple with. And I was like, listen, for me, it was like too big of a reveal to really kind of like, it became its own, like it kind of like became like a black hole in the book. Like, again, like it was too much trauma to introduce kind of too late in the book. And I think it's really interesting to see how, like, kind of what my personal threshold is for like what I want is for this person, of course, to have a happily ever after, but I would like them to get 10 years of hard therapy first. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's just like a different place for different people.
If you're looking for like an evil uncle or like sort of that sort of vibe of like the uncle, the takeover, the kind of like demand, the family echo, and this sort of guilt that comes with all of that, then Nisha Sharma's The Takeover Effect could be a real great read for you. This one is the heroine is basically, she wants to take over her mother's law firm. Her mother's passed away, and her uncles are trying to basically like sneak in and or swoop in and take it out from under her. And she basically says like, I'm willing to do anything. And her like kind of evil uncle is like, well, fine, then I think you should take this job to go work on the, at another firm, at a business run by the hero. And if you can convince that hero to do a merger with me, then you can have the firm. And of course they fall in love. And then like this uncle does a lot of like evil uncle-y things. And it's like, but what's interesting here is Nisha. And if you've read any of Nisha's books at all, The Takeover Effect is an earlier book of hers, but, an earlier romance of hers, but you can see the real, like, I mean, Nisha loves a family.
Yeah.
And like, so it isn't just like, here's a kind of snidely whiplash hero. I'm sorry, uncle. This is like, there is a complexity to all of the family dynamics in this book. And there just happens to also be like kind of a like singular bad dude. And I'll be honest, as I said before, I'm a simple person and I sometimes like a singular bad dude.
I mean, me too. One of my favorite recent families in romance is the Vega family and Natalie Canyon's series,
yeah.
right? Which I think is like really all of the
those grandfathers are
yes.
Ferris wheels, but a good one in the good
yes,
way.
Exactly. Like the meddling that they do. And in particular, I think that it's really fascinating to see the way in which the like younger people in the family are like, what is happening? But kind of like know that it comes from a place of love. And so they have like really no choice but to like put up with it. Right. And so kind of the like really the like a really dynamic, truly funny interplay between the family, but also like the generational aspect of it is really well done because there's like, like the generation that's having the love stories, like some of them have kids. And so you've got like grandparents and parents and, like all like just it is a really terrific, that to me, it's like the great, like a great dysfunctional family because the things that they do are just like normal family stuff and it will drive you crazy, but like it's all done from love. It's not the kind of dysfunctional family where you're like, okay, well, that person's evil and I'm going to back away slowly and hope that this character never talks to this person again.
Exactly. What other sort of favorites are there? I like this because we did an episode a while back that was about just like families in romance where we talked about like the Bridgertons. In fact, I think we did it like when Bridgerton came out. And so this is really nice because it's like a different spin on a very particular kind of romance thing. And I mean, I think that's because romance is so much about like child trauma, like installed buttons, the lies we are told about ourselves that we have to unlearn to believe that we're available for love. And that's why families are involved.
Yeah. I think, another one I was thinking about, which I wasn't sure that it really fit into any of those buckets, was Mistakes Were Made by Meryl Wilsner. And listen, I love this book, but Cassie is a college senior who has like a real hot one night stand with a older woman at a bar one night. And essentially like the next morning is going to go out to breakfast with her friend's, mom and finds out that like friend's mom is the woman she had the one night stand in the bar with. And it's interesting because Aaron, of course, was not like, I'm going to go seduce my daughter's best friend. But the attraction, and I think actually part of the reason it works is because the one night stand happens before they find out who they are, right? And I think there's a lot of tension between Aaron and her daughter. And so it ends up being a really I don't know, like just, and I think too, like Erin's like, I went to family weekend, like ended up having like sex with a college senior. I mean, there's just so much there, but none of it is coming from, right, like a bad place. And I think one of the things in particular about this book is I was really they end up essentially keeping the secret from Erin's daughter. And I found myself as I was reading just being hyper aware of like this was going to have to come out, right? Like there's no way you can keep this a secret. And so I thought that was a really a good example where it's the dysfunction is sort of, I don't know, like just the strain between Erin and her daughter means that she doesn't know how to tell her like what's happening between her and Cassie. It's great. It's another one. Again, though, you're like, I mean, when I first read that premise, I was like, I don't think I can read this. I don't think I have
you don't have the stamina.
I don't have the stamina for this kind of angst, but I did, and it is a great read. So.
Well,
romance families.
I'm sorry to all the dads out there who are dead in romance.
Listen, if Disney can kill off all the moms, romance can kill off all the dads. It's
fine. I remember once getting on Twitter back when Twitter existed and saying, like, can you name a romance novel where all four, with two protagonists, where all four biological or like, you know, primary parents are alive? And like, I think we came down to like two of them. And one of the, I feel like it was like two of them. And one of them was like one of those times when an author answers and is like, all of my characters' parents are alive, but none of them are on page. You know, like it's like
they're all alive.
She's
in
like,
my brain.
I know in my head that they're alive. Anyway, that is dysfunctional families. And here's what I'll say. If you do come from a dysfunctional family, which, let's be honest, you probably do, just know that you're not alone and that romance has got you. Jen and I have got you.
Sure.
We, all happy families are the same. All unhappy families are different in their own romancy way.
I'm going to tell this story now, an hour and 15 minutes in, because the likelihood of my mother listening this far is basically zero.
She's like, no, I'm done.
I think once I said blowjob and come on the lenses.
She pieced out of the description of Nikki Sloan's redemption.
But just to be safe, I've waited a whole hour later to say my brother, Eric, and I, and then like later, Mike, we kind of looped him in, have this thing that we say to each other. There's this great scene from the TV show Cheers with Norm, who George Wendt just died.
R.I.P.
Right. And I'm sure I've maybe talked about this before, but I have this like video that I'll send to my brother and back and forth when like we just need to express this. So Cliff is sitting at the bar talking whatever Cliff shit he is. If you've never seen the show, just know he's just like this loser mailman. Fine. And his mother, he lives with his mother still. And she comes into the bar and she's like, just like this very fussy older woman, gray haired, like with like curls. And she comes in with a shower cap and she like sticks it on his head and it says, Clifford, you left this shower cap like on the bathroom floor. And so now you're going to have to wear it all day. And she puts it on his head and storms out of the bar. Right. And Norm and Frasier look at each other. Right. And I think it's Frasier who says,
I bet it is.
I'm starting to understand that Cliff is heroically well-adjusted. Right? Like for years, they've been like, this guy is a wreck. And now, right? And I think that's what I wish for you, that to remember, right? You are heroically well-adjusted.
That's perfect. I did not have to wait an hour and 15 minutes to say this, but I will say that during the course of this recording, my sister has texted me no fewer than 15 times about my mother. So
listen,
we're all in the same boat.
Why don't you send me her? I'm going to send you this video for you to send to her.
Perfect. Anyway, my loves, no matter what kind of dysfunctional family you have, just remember we're all doing a little bit better than was done to us. How about that? We are Fated Mates. I'm Sarah McLean. I'm here with my friend Jen Prokop. You can find us every Wednesday when you listen to your podcasts. We are also available on Blue Sky, on Instagram, and on Threads. You can find the collections that Jen was referring to, including Sanj's terrific glasses collection, at the Fated Mates website. Just head over to fatedmates.net, click on collections, and you'll find a bunch of groups of books collected on theme by real humans and not a single algorithm in the mix. While you're there, you can also click on show notes, and that'll take you to the episode for today. You'll see a beautiful array of all the books we talked about and any references that we made in show notes. And don't forget to join us, please, in St. Louis. If you're anywhere near there, it's bound to be a fun time. Make a couple days of it. St. Louis is supposed to be very fun. You can find information at fatedmates.net/live. My new book comes out July 8th. It is called These Summer Storms. You can pre-order it wherever you get your books. And if you live east of St. Louis, I might be near you on tour, and Jen might be with me. So check out my tour at sarahmclean.net/tour. Jen, is there anything else? Anything going on in June for you?
Susan Elizabeth Phillips, baby. That's it.
Yeah. If you're reading Susan Elizabeth Phillips, so is Jen. Head over and talk to her.